All right, back again for another deep dive. And we are tackling some seriously requested content.
Yeah, lots of you wanted us to do more on Beyonce.
So we put the word out.
And we heard you.
And the question that kept coming back was this. Would Beyonce's career have reached the same insane level if Aaliyah was still with us?
Right, because they were kind of coming up at the same time.
And you know, as non-Black millennials, this is kind of delicate territory for us.
Absolutely.
This is music that we grew up with. It's part of our, musical DNA.
Absolutely.
But we also recognize that there are cultural elements that we might not fully grasp.
Right.
So please bear with us as we try to tackle this one.
For sure.
And if we make any missteps, let us know.
Yeah, it's blue.
Because we're always open to learning and understanding different perspectives.
For sure.
So to set the stage, we did some digging. We checked out Beyonce and Aaliyah's Wikipedia pages.
Of course.
Found a pretty heated Reddit thread where fans were dissecting this very question. And we even stumbled upon an article about Damon Dash, Aaliyah's former partner.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of shed some light on their overlapping social circles.
Very interesting.
So we have some sources to work with here.
Definitely.
And it's interesting how these sources really highlight not just their individual journeys,
Right.
but also this constant comparison and this perceived rivalry.
Yeah, you see that a lot, especially in online discussions and forums.
Yeah, like you can't talk about one without the other.
Right, it's Aaliyah versus Beyonce.
Yeah. And it's always framed as this either or, like you have to choose a side.
Right.
Like I was just scrolling through that Reddit thread
Yeah.
and you see comments like, Beyonce is the queen.
Aaliyah was more authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or Aaliyah had more soul.
It's so interesting how those narratives develop and take hold.
Right.
It's almost like there's this sense of limited space for women in music.
Like only one of them can be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's rewind a bit and look at their backgrounds. Both Beyonce and Aaliyah started their careers incredibly young.
Oh, yeah, like child stars, practically.
Yeah, both were part of successful girl groups, Destiny's Child and Sista.
Uh-huh.
And both transitioned to solo careers around the same time.
And both had those early hits that blew up the charts.
And, even back then, you could see those early parallels in their performance styles.
For sure.
At least initially.
Yeah.
They both had this youthful energy.
Yeah, just a ton of charisma that you can't deny.
Yeah, and you just couldn't take your eyes off of them.
Exactly.
But even then, you could see hints of the distinct paths they would eventually carve out.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you could see them developing their own unique styles.
It's really fascinating to look back on those early performances, knowing what we know now.
Right, knowing how their careers unfolded.
There's a comment on the Reddit thread that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
Comparing their performance styles and saying, Beyonce, even early on, already had this high energy, show-stopping presence.
She really commands your attention.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's this intensity to her performances that you just can't ignore.
Yeah, it's like she's taking over the entire stage and pulling you into her world.
Exactly.
But then you have Aaliyah, who had this completely different vibe.
Right.
The Reddit thread described it as naturally dope.
Which I think is the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, she didn't need all the bells and whistles,
Yeah.
the fancy choreography, or the elaborate sets.
No, it was much more understated, but just as captivating.
Yeah, she had this magnetic stage presence that was just so effortlessly cool.
Right, and that's where you start to see their approaches to captivating audiences diverge.
For sure.
Beyonce, she was all about those visual spectacles, right?
Yeah, high-energy productions that just demand your participation.
Think about any Beyonce concert. It's an experience. It's a visual feast, a full-blown production.
Totally. It's like she's giving you a million different things to look at and experience all at once.
Exactly. And then you have Aaliyah, who captivated audiences in a very different way. Her music videos, her fashion, her overall aura.
Yeah, it was all about connecting with listeners through a more subtle, almost intimate approach.
Right. It wasn't about being loud or over the top. It was about that subtle magnetism.
Yeah, and her music videos are really interesting to look at.
Oh, they're iconic.
There's this simplicity to them, a focus on her personality and the mood of the song.
Right, One in a Million or We Need a Resolution.
Yeah, exactly. It's very different from the more, narrative-driven or highly choreographed videos that were common at the time.
Totally. She understood the power of subtlety.
Yeah.
Of connecting with the audience through a look, a gesture, a perfectly timed head tilt.
Right, she wasn't trying to overpower you with her performance.
No, it was much more about drawing you in.
It was definitely effective.
Very much so.
So we've got these two contrasting performance styles.
Right.
But there's another layer here that we can't ignore,
What's that?
and that's the influence of their teams.
Ah, yes. Their management, their producers, their labels.
Right? Beyoncé, from a very young age, was managed by her father, Matthew Knowles.
Uh-huh.
And you can really see how that rigorous training shaped her work ethic and her approach to performing.
No, absolutely. It was like a boot camp for superstardom.
Yeah, like there's an anecdote in one of the YouTube videos that was discussed in the Reddit thread
Oh, yeah.
where a dancer who worked with Beyoncé early in her career talks about how Matthew would drill them for hours,
No way.
pushing them to perfect every move, every formation.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it sounds really intense.
But you can see how that level of discipline might have contributed to the precision and power of Beyoncé's stage
Yeah,
presence.
it wasn't your average childhood.
Definitely not.
But, you can't argue with the results,
Right, all that dedication and focus definitely paid off.
for sure.
Sure.
And it's important to acknowledge that Aaliyah also had a dedicated team behind her,
Of course.
guiding her career, shaping her image.
Yeah, she had Timbaland and Missy Elliott working on her music.
Right, exactly.
And they were like the hottest producers at the time.
Yeah, they were creating groundbreaking music together.
Yeah, but it's just that Matthew Knowles' approach, as described in those sources,
Oh,
was particularly hands-on and demanding.
Right, he had a very specific vision for his daughter's career.
And he wasn't afraid to push her to achieve it.
Okay, so we've talked about performance styles
Yeah.
and the influence of their teams, but I think it's time to address the elephant in the room,
Oh, boy.
their voices.
Yeah, their vocal styles were so different.
Beyonce's vocal range and power are just undeniable.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something that everyone acknowledges.
She can hit those high notes like nobody's business.
But with Aaliyah, there's this interesting dynamic at play.
Right.
Some fans call it her baby voice.
Yeah, it's that kind of whispery, breathy quality that became like a signature part of her sound.
Right, especially in some of her most popular songs.
Exactly, like, are you that somebody, or try again.
And it's interesting because while Aaliyah definitely had vocal range,
Sure, she could sing.
her most popular songs often highlighted that specific quality,
Uh-huh.
which might have led some listeners to underestimate her full vocal capabilities.
It's true. She didn't always belt it out.
Right.
But when she did, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, there are definitely moments where you can hear her hitting those powerful notes.
Like in Rock the Boat, for example.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if that choice to emphasize the baby voice was a strategic one.
Yeah, like a way of differentiating herself from other artists who were known for their big voices.
Right. Like maybe it was a deliberate artistic choice to create a unique sound.
It's definitely a possibility.
Okay, so we've got these contrasting vocal styles,
Right.
these different approaches to performance, and these fascinating glimpses into their individual journeys.
Definitely a lot to unpack here.
I think we're ready to dive a little deeper into how their careers might have intertwined
Yeah, like what if their paths had continued to intersect?
or even influence each other if Aaliyah's life hadn't been tragically cut short.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I think we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Another one.
Yeah, the anecdote from Damon Dash where he reveals that both he and Jay-Z
Oh, yeah.
are romantically interested in Aaliyah.
Yeah. That was juicy.
It definitely adds another layer to the whole narrative.
Right. It highlights those personal connections within their professional circles.
And it makes you wonder how those relationships, those personal dynamics might have played out.
Yeah, in a world where their careers continued to overlap.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork,
We've got a good foundation.
explored those early comparisons, and even uncovered some, personal details.
A little bit of tea.
Now let's dive into the heart of the matter.
All right, let's do it.
How might their careers have unfolded side by side?
Right.
And could Aaliyah's continued presence have altered Beyoncé's path to superstardom?
That's the question. Okay, so let's imagine that Aaliyah's career hadn't been cut short.
Right. What if she was still making music today?
Exactly how would her music have evolved?
Because think about it, her sound was already pushing boundaries back then.
Oh, for sure, with those futuristic Timbaland tracks.
Like, are you... That's somebody!
Yeah, and try again.
It was so ahead of its time.
And so unique.
So where would she have gone next, musically?
Right, like could she have become even more experimental, more influential in shaping the sound of pop music?
Yeah, and there's a comment in that Reddit thread that mentions how Aaliyah was also getting into acting.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
She was in Romeo Must Die and was supposed to be in The Matrix Reloaded.
Right, she was branching out.
So could she become this multi-hyphenate star.
Totally. Someone who blurred the lines between music, film, and fashion.
And that kind of crossover success could have had a huge impact.
Oh, absolutely.
And not just on her own career, but also on how female artists were perceived.
And the opportunities they were given.
Totally. And let's not forget, Beyonce was already showing signs of her own versatility.
Yo, yeah, for sure.
Dangerously in Love was a massive success.
It really showcased her range.
Right. And her ability to blend genres,
Yeah.
create these powerful anthems.
So you have these two artists, both on the rise, both pushing boundaries.
It's like a musical arms race.
But in a good way.
Yeah, like they're pushing each other to be better.
Exactly.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
Even if they weren't like direct rivals, wouldn't the music industry
Oh, yeah.
and maybe even the fans still pit them against each other?
Totally. It's like this weird thing where people have a hard time accepting that multiple women can be successful at the same time.
It's like there can only be one queen.
Right. And that mentality would definitely have influenced how their careers were perceived and covered.
Totally. And then you add social media into the mix.
Oh, boy.
And it just amplifies those comparisons and rivalries.
It's like fuel to the fire.
Can you imagine the fan wars? The debates about who's better, who's more talented?
Oh, it would be constant.
It's kind of sad, though.
It is, because it takes away from their actual work.
Right. It becomes less about the music and more about this manufactured competition.
It's a distraction.
Okay, but let's try to imagine a more positive scenario.
Right. I like where this is going.
What if, instead of feeding into that rivalry, they had actually collaborated?
Whoa, now that's a thought.
Can you imagine the impact?
Oh, it would have been huge.
A collaboration between Beyonce and Aaliyah.
It would have been epic.
The creative energy. The combined star power.
And the message it would have sent about female artists supporting each other?
It could have been a cultural phenomenon.
Absolutely. It could have changed the game.
Maybe even challenged those narratives that pit women against each other.
It would have been a powerful statement.
Okay, so we've talked about their individual paths, the potential for competition and collaboration.
Uh-huh.
But I think we need to zoom out a bit and consider their broader cultural impact.
Okay, their legacy.
They were both style icons, trendsetters.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They influenced fashion and music in a major way.
Aaliyah with that tomboy chic aesthetic.
Right, the baggy jeans, the crop tops.
She had that effortless, cool vibe.
And it resonated with so many people.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about the clothes.
No.
It was an attitude, a way of carrying
Her
herself.
confidence.
Yeah, but also that approachability.
And her impact on fashion is still felt today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You see it in streetwear, in how female artists present themselves.
Undeniable.
And then you have Beyonce, who has always pushed boundaries with her visuals.
Her costumes, her music videos.
Her whole aesthetic,
She's never been afraid to experiment.
right, to embrace different styles and influences.
And that's had a huge impact on the fashion world.
Totally. It's like they both understood the power of image,
Yeah.
of using their platform to express themselves creatively.
And challenge those traditional notions of beauty and femininity.
Having those two forces operating at the same time
Yeah,
could have created this incredibly dynamic cultural landscape,
for sure.
influencing fashion trends, music videos.
Even broader conversations about female empowerment.
So instead of viewing your potential careers as this what-if scenario,
Right.
where one success might have diminished the others,
Yeah.
maybe it's more about imagining the ripple effects
The combined influence.
on music, fashion, and even those broader social conversations.
I think that's a really insightful way to frame it.
It's about moving away from that zero-sum mentality
Right.
and recognizing that their individual contributions and their potential collaboration.
Could have created something truly special.
All right, so we've explored their potential career trajectories.
We've covered a lot of ground.
The industry pressures the broader cultural impact,
Uh-huh.
but I think we need to circle back to that anecdote about Damon Dash, Jay-Z, and Aaliyah.
Oh, yeah, that little love triangle.
It's not just a juicy detail.
Right.
It reveals something about their overlapping social circles.
How intertwined their lives were.
It's like a glimpse into the personal dynamics behind the scenes.
Makes you wonder how those relationships, those personal connections might have influenced their creative decisions.
Or their career paths.
It's like a real-life soap opera.
Right, but with music careers and legacies at stake,
Adds a whole other layer of intrigue to the discussion.
it does. And it makes you think about the conversations they might have had,
The advice they might have given each other.
the support they might have offered.
It's a reminder that behind the music, Behind those public personas
They were real people with real emotions.
and real relationships.
And it's something we often forget
Yeah.
when we get caught up in these hypothetical scenarios and industry narratives.
We focus on the competition, the comparisons.
But ultimately, these were two young women navigating a complex and often challenging industry.
It humanizes the conversation.
Right. It reminds us that their journeys were about more than just chart positions and awards.
It's about their lives, their experiences, their dreams.
Okay, so we've delved pretty deep here, explored those what-ifs and
Like
maybes.
the hypotheticals.
I think we're ready to wrap things up
Okay.
and see if we can answer that initial question.
The big question.
Would Beyoncé's level of success be the same if Aaliyah was still with us?
Let's see if we can find an answer.
Okay, so we've really spent a lot of time dissecting, Beyoncé and Aaliyah's careers,
We've covered a lot of ground.
their potential rivalry, the cultural impact, all of it.
The whole 9 yards.
But that initial question, the one that sparked this whole deep dive, is still unanswered.
The million-dollar question.
Would Beyoncé have reached the same level of global superstardom if Aaliyah's life hadn't been tragically cut short?
Right.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah. Impossible to know for certain.
But let's play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay.
Aaliyah was on this incredible upward trajectory.
Oh, yeah. She was a rising star.
Critically acclaimed, crossing over into film, her style was influencing a generation.
She was a force to be reckoned with.
Could that momentum have overshadowed Beyoncé, at least for a while?
It's definitely possible.
Like, she had this unique sound, this growing fan base.
Yeah, she was gaining momentum for sure.
But we also have to remember that Beyoncé was already showing immense talent and potential even then.
Right.
Like, Dangerously in Love was a massive hit.
Oh, yeah, a global phenomenon.
And her solo career was already taking off.
No, even if there had been this period of intense competition,
Right.
I'm not convinced it would have derailed Beyoncé's overall trajectory.
It's like they were both destined for greatness in their own right.
Exactly.
But what's really intriguing is imagining the alternative.
Okay, I like this.
What if instead of competition, they had collaborated?
Now that's a thought.
Can you imagine
It would have been incredible.
the creative energy, the fusion of their styles? It would have been explosive.
Talk about a power duo.
Like a joint album,
Yeah.
a tour, even just a single.
The possibilities are endless.
It would have been a game changer.
For sure.
And think about the message it would have sent
Yeah.
to the industry, to young women.
Two powerful female artists coming together to create something extraordinary.
Instead of being pitted against each other.
It would have been a powerful statement.
So instead of dwelling on what might have been in terms of competition,
Right.
what if we focus on the potential for collaboration
Mm-hmm.
and mutual support?
I think that's a more positive and realistic way to look at it.
They are both incredibly talented, destined for greatness, and their legacies continue to inspire us.
Absolutely.
So what can we definitively conclude from all of this?
Well,
It's impossible to say for sure what would have happened,
right.
but what I'm taking away from this deep dive
Yeah.
is a profound appreciation for both of these artists.
Me too.
They were both incredibly talented, they were both destined for greatness, and their legacies continue to inspire us.
It's a testament to their impact.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, to our listeners, we want to hear from you.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Beyoncé and Aaliyah?
Do you think their careers would have been defined by competition or collaboration?
Hit us up on social media. Let's keep this conversation going.
We always love hearing your perspectives and insights.
After all, that's what the deep dive is all about.
So that's a wrap on our exploration of Beyoncé and Aaliyah. It's been a fascinating journey full of what-ifs and thoughtful reflections. We hope you enjoyed diving deep with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep the music playing.